but we will start. Oh, sounds like recording is starting there now. Yeah, so we'll get started. I think this is what happens when the weather is good outside. We have low farmer turnout here today, but I would imagine they will still be joining us here. So hopefully that will be the case. Do we want to do a roundtable introductions of people? Nodding, yes, no, maybe. I think we'll do that. Sarah, if you can kind of manage who to call out.
Sure thing, through you, Mr. Chair. First on my list is CAO Wingrove.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kim Wingrove, Grey County CAO. Great to see you all this afternoon. Thanks.
Next on my list is Gail Ardell.
I don't know if everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Gail Ardell, apple grower, right in the middle of production. We still probably have a month of picking. Turned out to be a bumper crop, so we're very excited.
Thank you. Next on my list, I have Simon DeBoer.
Simon DeBoer, farmer, and somehow or other, and right in the middle of our bean harvest and corn silage and a whole bunch of stuff. So, but anyways, I'm inside. So
I'm going to skip over our delegates just because I'm sure we'll hear all about them in just a minute. And then next on my members, I have Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Schray. I'm with the National Farmers Union for Grey County and also a sheep and former vegetable farmer, market gardening, and have been with, I guess, NFU and with the Alice Pack for probably over a decade now. Thank you.
Next on my list, I have Courtney Miller.
Good afternoon, Courtney Miller, Grey County Business Enterprise Center.
And then next we have Heather.
I'm Heather Aldro with Grey County Marketing and Communications.
Hugh, Member Simpson.
Hi, I'm Hugh Simpson. I'm a commercial beekeeper and maple syrup producer down in the southeast corner of Grey. I'm also on the Grey County Federation of Agriculture. And like Brenda, I've been forever on the Alice Policy Advisory Committee here in Grey. Bruce.
And then Kalina.
Hi, I'm Kalina Stanford. I'm with Grey County Economic Development.
Lori Smith.
Hi, everyone. I work at Grey Ag Services. We're busy preparing winter courses and Graber's Farmers Week. I'm happy to be here and yeah, look forward to the upcoming stuff that we talk about. Thank you.
Councillor McQueen.
Yeah, Grey County Councillor, Mayor of Grey Highlands, a member of Grey County Federation of Ag, and a beef farmer, and maybe bale some second cut this afternoon for silage.
Randy, you're next up on my list.
Good afternoon, everyone. Randy Schertzer, Deputy CEO with Grey County.
Savannah Myers.
Hi, everyone. Savannah Myers, Director of Economic Development, Tourism, and Culture with Grey County.
Councillor Mackey. Councillor Mackey, I think you froze there for us, but I'll come back to you. Next on my list, I have Scott.
Hi all, I'm Scott Taylor, the Director of Planning with the county.
Next, I have Councillor Keaveney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shirley Keaveney, Deputy Mayor, Municipality of Meaford, and Councillor for the County of Grey.
And Steve would be next for me.
Hello, everyone. Steve Furness, Manager of Economic Development and Tourism for Grey County. Thank you.
Tara.
Everyone, I'm Tara Warder. I'm the clerk here at Grey County.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I was anticipating that. Tom Hutchinson. I'm on Gray County Council. I'm also the Deputy Mayor of West Gray. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Trevor.
Hi, I'm Trevor Ireton, Engineering Manager for Gray County Transportation Services.
And I see that Liz Buckton has joined us as well.
That's going to help. Lovely to be here today. I'm Liz, Senior Policy Planner. So, hello.
I believe, I'm sorry, Mr. Warden, I feel like I've neglected you somewhere along the line.
Nope, not at all. Brian Millen, Gray County Warden, Mayor of Township of Southgate, and poor farmer.
And then I am Sarah Goldrup, Deputy Clerk for the County of Gray. And I feel like that's everyone besides yourself, Mr. Chair. So we'll end on you and then get into things.
Okay, great. Yes, and Keith Reed, the current chair. We farm outside of Owen Sound and also sit on the Gray County Federation of Agriculture Board as well. On the phone, I believe we have Blair Freeman. And sending their regrets today is Rob Lipsett, and coming a little bit later is Diane Booker as well. Is there a declaration of interest from anyone today for today's meeting? Hearing none, we will move on to number 3 on the agenda, which is the delegations. So we have the General Manager, Steve Kenny, joining us from Eat Local Grey Bruce. Steve, are you there?
I am, thank you. Yeah, good to be here. I was asked to come give a bit of an update with Eat Local Grey Bruce and where we're at. Briefly, I came on board in April of this year when they were doing their relaunch, and as the general manager. I'm sure some people are aware, but a bit of a background with Eat Local. We're a not-for-profit co-op, eater members and producer members, the goal to bring local food to local eaters. There was a very large financial issue with the organization last fall, and a fundraising campaign was run to at least get it back on track and give it another shot. Through that, Gray had provided some money for a consultant to help through that process. So before my time with the organization, that consultant had helped them look at their overall business model, get a sense of better sense of some profit margin ideas and what products they should be having through the store, and as well as the position to restaff with, which became the role that I'm in now. And then since I came on board, I've also connect with Angela a number of times. She helped me get up to speed in this space. I haven't worked in the food space before. And as I got into this space and some of the programs we were using, she really helped me just work through some of the issues we were having in the past and find a better way to operate, especially around some things with inventory, how we were tracking things. So that's the role Angela's played so far. As an organization, we again reopened and started selling through our store at the end of April. So we've basically done 6 months now. The first 2 months, we were purposely operating at half capacity, essentially. We were delivering to half of our area 1 week and the other half the next. And that was, again, on purpose, just to get things up and running again, get a sense where we're at without diving in too deep. After that 2 months, we went to sort of our our standard order period, which is all our members were able to order each week. We've seen good growth. August is actually historically our slowest month, or one of our slowest, mainly because farmers markets are everywhere. Everyone has their own produce. I don't think I sold a single tomato in the month of August. You'd think August would be busy for us, but it's just not. But we were expecting that, and that was in our projections. And we've seen some really good growth now the last, especially couple weeks, coming out of a lot of farmers markets ending, Thanksgiving, and the efforts we've been doing to just increase our base and communicate with our members. Obviously, the debt and the financial history was one of the biggest challenges we were facing. We've been paying our producers 30 days monthly consistently. We've incurred no new long-term debt since reoperating or reopening. We're essentially operating at break even so far, which is great. We do need to see a bit more growth for this to truly make sense, and especially to start paying back some of that past debt, which is one of our main goals. But overall, yeah, I'm very happy with where we're currently operating. We have a lot of volunteer power now that we weren't utilizing before. So that's a good overview of where we're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions or if anyone has anything they'd like to ask me about what we're doing.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And I apologize. I was supposed to have Courtney. I was supposed to have you introduce Steve. So
Okay.
I jumped the gun there. Are there any questions for Steve? I actually have a quick question. I was in a meeting last night, and it was interesting, just kind of the talks of how COVID, there's a bit of an uptick with, you know, the CSA and that model. How are things going after COVID? And if there is such a thing as after COVID, are you seeing the same, less, more? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously part of that was before I was with the organization, but that was actually one of the factors that led to that downfall in the fall. During COVID, the organization essentially doubled overnight when COVID hit. So when that happens, they obviously were making a lot of decisions quickly to deal with that. And sometimes that's always not the most like long-term best decision. And they were dealing with having to do it under COVID restrictions too. So there was so then last fall, as things started to come down, that sort of doubling came back to the pre-COVID levels, and they'd upped a lot of the infrastructure to deal with that. So yeah, that COVID was a huge factor in what happened last fall. When we sort of, well, the board and the finance committee, when we were reopening, we really reprojected with looking at the numbers of where we were before COVID as a baseline. So I had always said 100 orders a week would be like, if we're doing that, that's got to be our minimum. They were doing up to 200 plus a week during COVID. This week, we just had our first 100 order week, which is great. Again, need a bit more, but we're sort of back now to that pre-COVID level.
Good. And have a question from Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about how many members you have, how to become a member, and perhaps share a little bit about the community fridge.
Most definitely. Yeah, so members, we have about 400 members, but about 200 active members, and about probably only about 120 that are ordering on a regular basis. So that gives you a sense of like the numbers of members. Membership is $45 for a year, and that you can sign up for that on our website, which is eatlocalgraveroos.ca. There's also a seasonal membership that's $28, $25, which is for half the year. Some people, especially people who come to the area during the summer months, that's a good option for some people. And yeah, we have a community fridge. So in our warehouse space, we have a fridge that's open to any members of the community to just come in during our business hours and pick up some food, which is right. There's our fridge. There's the pantry. It's stocked primarily or large part from the community garden, fresh produce. So they come by a couple times a week and drop stuff off. We also put stuff in there too. Sometimes ordering I have to do in bulk and it's a little more than I need. So I'll sort of do those orders and then contribute to the community fridge. And then we just have community members who will just come in and drop stuff off. we had a whole bunch, we had about a dozen pumpkins show up at the door yesterday, and I don't know where they came from, but someone dropped them off. And then, yeah, anyone can come in and just stop by and pick stuff up. It's pretty barrier free. As long as our door is unlocked, they just can walk in and grab something.
Excellent. And a question from Brenda.
Actually, it's a response to you, Keith, about CSA memberships and that post-COVID. There's definitely been a big drop. There's been very long-term CSA farms that have actually had more difficulty filling their memberships in the past year or so. So, you know, and plus with way that inflation is going and everything, everyone's sort of holding a lot tighter to their food dollar. So local food has actually, I think, been quite suffering from a combination of post-COVID and food inflation. So just to comment on what you were asking.
Excellent, thanks. Are there any other questions while Steve is still joining us? Seeing none. Thank you, Steve, for your time, and I appreciate you coming to the Ag Advisory Board today.
So much for having me.
Great. So we'll move on to the second delegation, which is Andy Kester and Ian Erickson, and I will ask Scott Taylor to do the introduction for this one.
Great. Thanks so much, Chair Reid. Yeah, I'm pleased to introduce our next two delegates today. Just before I do so, they're both going to be speaking to different elements of tile drainage. I will note we've got a piece of correspondence on the agenda later on with respect to tile drainage, but it's a topic that obviously comes up quite a bit in both the farm community, but also at our municipal and county tables. And sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a who's on first, because it's not always entirely clear to those that aren't intimately familiar with who does what with respect to what's OMAFRA's role, what might be the role of a conservation authority, and what might come back to the county or the municipalities. So we're very thrilled to have our two delegates with us here today. We have Andy Kester, who is with OMAFRA, and he is a drainage analyst. And I'm hoping we have Ian Erickson. He might be having some connection details, but I think we were planning on having Andy go first anyway. Ian Erickson, some of you might know from his former role at a private engineering firm, but now he is the manager of engineering services with Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. So with that, through you, Mr. Chair, we'll turn it over to Andy and hopefully be able to get Ian connected here very shortly. Thanks.
Hello. My name's Andy Kester. I am a drainage analyst, drainage inspector with the province, and I also farm in South Huron County. So, and I've been asked here to talk about drainage. So the province, the province looks after, or OMAFRA looks after, three pieces of drainage legislation. We administer the Tile Drainage Act and the Drainage Act in conjunction with the municipalities, and we also administer the Agricultural Tile Drainage Installation Act. And with the Drainage Act, we also need to talk about common law. So I'm going to talk about common law a little bit as well. Can you forward on, Sarah? Okay, so drainage. Basically, I'm going to run through these slides fairly quickly to make sure that we don't overrun our time. This slide here, this is contrary to most people's opinion, but the roadside ditches are an example of a private drainage system owned and operated by the municipality. And the exception to that statement would be that if the roadside ditch was constructed under the Drainage Act, then it would be considered a municipal drain. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Oh, next slide. So the Tile Drainage Act was passed 145 years ago. It is a loans program, again, administered through the municipalities and the province. Okay, the basis of that program is it's a 10-year fixed term loan. Current interest rate is at 6%. There is a 75%. The landowner can receive up to 75% of the cost of the project, with a maximum of $50,000 per year. Okay, if a landowner does a project that is larger than about $67,000, they could do what we call a continuation loan. So they could have received their $50,000 maximum loan in this fiscal and then could apply to the municipality for a continuation loan for the balance of that 75% in the following fiscal years. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, and then we're going to skip over this slide. Okay, so the loan features. Okay, it's a fairly simple process for people to apply. It's an alternate source of funding other than banks. It's a longer term loan. The real benefit is it's redeemable at any time without penalty. So you could apply for a loan, have it run for 6 years, and you can ask for redemption at that 6-year point, and there is no penalty for that redemption. From the municipality's perspective, the repayments have priority lien status, or they're deemed to be taxes, so that it's a very there's a very small liability from the municipality's perspective. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, in the next slide, so the Agricultural Tile Installation Act, it was passed in 1973, and it was actually lobbied for by the drainage contractors organization of the time. Okay, and it applies to the installation of tile drainage on agricultural land. Okay, there's 3 licenses under that piece of legislation. Can we go to the next slide? First license that we're going to talk about is the operator's license, Class C license. You can apply for a Class C license once you have 60 days experiencing doing other duties for a tile drainage contractor. So you cannot operate the drainage machine. This license allows the person to operate the drainage machine. Once you have a Class C license, you can operate the drainage machine, but you need to be supervised by either Class A or Class B operator. Okay, to upgrade from a Class C operator, there is the primary drainage course. You need 250 hours of machine operating experience, and you can apply to upgrade to a Class B operator. Once you're Class B operator, you still need to be supervised by the Class A operator, but the contact for that Class A operator is a minimum of every 3 hours. So you have more ability to operate not so closely supervised. Once you have an additional or a minimum of 500 operating hours and you've done the advanced drainage course, you can apply to have a field test conducted by the provincial tile inspector. And once you're successful with that, you could be upgraded to a Class A operator. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, second license is machine licenses. So the machine licenses deal with the machines designed to install tile drainage. Okay, doesn't apply to backhoes, excavators. Okay, OMAFR tests every new machine model that the manufacturers make. And once that testing has been completed and successfully passed, then any new machine of that model is able to be licensed at that time. If you have a used machine that is unlicensed and you want to get it licensed, it would require an inspection when the license application comes in. Not the same level of testing as the new machine model, because it has gone through that testing already. Next slide. Okay, here's the Braun plow, the Wolf plow, and the Tate plow. They are all manufactured in Ontario. Okay, and we can go to the next slide. Okay, the last license with the Installation Act is the business license. To obtain a business license, you're required to have access to a licensed machine. you're required to have access to a licensed Class A operator. And then the business, once it's licensed, it is what is ultimately responsible to ensure that the drainage system is properly designed and installed. And if it isn't, business is the entity that would be required to remedy that situation. Okay, and we can go on to the next slide. With the Installation Act, province appoints a provincial drainage inspector. I am appointed as that inspector, and I will do inspections for upgrades to operator licenses, and I will do inspections if a landowner has work completed that they're feel it doesn't comply with the legislation. They can request an inspection, and we'll do an inspection and a report and usually make recommendations. Okay, if we go to the next slide. Okay, publication 29 is basically the technical specifications that we adhere to. Okay, next slide. Okay, so approvals. So generally there are no permits or approvals required for agricultural property owners to install tile drainage, although some conservation authorities would require a permit to connect the system to an outlet. Okay, and I believe Ian's going to talk to that more in his presentation. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so we've talked about the Installation Act and the Tile Drainage Act. I'm going to talk about common law for a little bit. Common law, that is really the law, the legality that comes from court cases. Okay, under common law, surface water has no right of drainage, so a lower landowner could actually block the flow of surface water onto their property. Okay, there is prescriptive rights under common law, so although you may not have the ability to actually collect water and drain it, if you have water collected and draining to a certain source for more than 20 years, and it's been that way uncontested for that time, then you could go to the courts to obtain what is called prescriptive rights. Okay. Under common law, also, anyone who collects water is required to take it to a sufficient outlet, and a sufficient outlet would be a location that doesn't do damage to a downstream neighbor. Okay. Again, a sufficient outlet, also you have to have the legal ability to actually drain into that outlet. For example, in one of my earlier slides, I talked about the roadside ditch being a private drain. Okay, the road authority or the municipality does not have to allow a landowner access to drain into that roadside ditch. That ditch was constructed for the road authority. Okay. So can we go to the next slides here? Okay, so the Drainage Act actually overrides some of the limitations of the common law. Okay, the Drainage Act, it is a piece of legislation, enabling piece of legislation, which allows landowners who require drainage a process to actually get that drainage built. Okay. If we look at it, predominantly the drains are built on private land. It is a user pay system, so that the lands that contribute water to that drainage system are the ones that are assessed for the cost of that work. Okay, it is municipal infrastructure as well. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, I think we're gonna go through the next two slides. So you're gonna have to click, I think. Yeah, keep going. There's 10 of those that you're gonna get through. Okay, so so the features of a municipal drain, there is an engineer's report and a bylaw that adopts that report, creates the legal existence of that municipal drain. Okay, it's municipal infrastructure. The municipality is responsible for the management of that drain. They do the maintenance on it. Again, they assess the cost of that maintenance out to the landowners in that drain. If the municipality does not perform the proper maintenance or keep the drain up to its standards in the report, there is a potential liability if they don't do that. Okay. Again, so municipality acquires the right of entry onto the land because it's built on private land, but it's municipal infrastructure. You acquire the right to access that land. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Okay, so the Drainage Act is there to create this communal drainage system. Okay, there are other pieces of legislation that the municipality drainage superintendents need to work with also to find common ground to actually be able to construct the drainage system. So the Federal Fisheries Act, the Species at Risk Act, the Conservation Authorities Act, and the Endangered Species Act, the superintendents and the engineers so the superintendents who maintain those drains and the engineers who construct or who design those drains actually have to work within the bounds of those pieces of legislation as well as the Drainage Act to get the drains constructed. Okay, next piece of legislation, or next slide, sorry. Okay, this is the last slide. Okay, so there are four of us individuals at OMAFRA that actually deal with drainage. Tim Brook is the program coordinator. Okay, I myself am a drainage analyst, drainage inspector. Kalita Atwa is a drainage analyst, and Becky Coran is the administrative service rep. Okay, and I'm going to give that back to Sarah, or back to Scott.
I wonder through you, Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate that we hear from Mr. Erickson next and then open it up to questions to both our delegates, if that works for our delegates and you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's fine for me, and we can ask questions at the end. Yep, for sure.
Excellent. All right, Ian, I guess we'll turn it over to you here.
Thank you for the invitation to attend this meeting and present to all of you on essentially tile drainage and a little bit of probably drainage in general. Presentation's fairly short, just dealing more with the approvals that are generally required, and I'll be honest, if there's questions, I guess like to know what it is that that after we give the general overview, what it is everybody wants to go over. So I'm Ian Erickson. I'm with Gray Sawville Conservation Authority. I'm the manager of engineering services. Only been here about 3 months, and before that I was with GM Blue Plan Engineering. I was the drainage superintendent for the Township of Georgian Bluffs and the Township of Chatsworth for over 10 years. And I have published some municipal drain reports as well. I will admit that I haven't got into a whole lot of tile drainage projects over the years. They don't often involve too much of the engineer's part, but most of what we're getting into today is the approvals and regulations. So I'll go to the next slide there. So the main question I guess I was asked is what approvals are required and what is the Gray Sawville Conservation's role in tile drainage. And there has been some lots of discussions with the tile drainage contractors as to when a permit is required. And really it comes down to is when a tile installation gets within the regulated area of the Gray Salvo Conservation, then that's when a permit is needed. They're generally not that involved to get a permit. Just need to get the information where, basically what are they proposing to do? Where are the tiles going? What is the outlet? But you realize a lot of tile drains, where the outlet is going is to a water course, to a drainage ditch, to something that is often regulated. So a lot of tile drainage projects do, require a permit just for usually a small part of it, not necessarily the whole thing. So just went right into the wording. Just the method of installing a drainage tile involves the temporary or permanent placing, dumping, or removal of any material originating on the site or elsewhere. And that's what sort of the discussion with contractors is often. They're saying, well, I'm putting the material back. I'm not removing anything. I'm not, placing things. I'm digging it, putting in a tile and putting it back. But really it comes down to that's the temporary removal of material from the site. Even though it gets put back where it is, that's the part that requires the permit. And then also, if there's anything that has to do with altering a water course, of course, that would be regulated as well. The methods of installing tiles, often we'll get into that, or if there's anything interfering with the wetland. The other part to this is that as much as we put in there that anything was within a regulated area, well, that's when we need to be called. That's when the contractor needs to check with the planning department to see if a permit's required. But it always comes down to the written word of the Conservation Authorities Act, that even if an area isn't regulated, if it should be, if it is a wetland, if it is a water course, and it should be, then the planning staff do have that is their job to make sure that also requires a permit. So again, that's where we just ask them, the contractors, to reach out to the planning department to confirm. Next slide, please. So how does the landowner or contractor determine whether that work is there? This one I think is fairly simple. There's the mapping of the regulated areas is available on Grey County Maps. It's a layer that can easily be turned on to show where it is. And again, they have the aerials. Everybody's seen that. Gray Salvo Conservation also has regulation mapping on our website that can be brought up as well. So either one of those would show for any property where the regulated area is. Next slide, please. And then how do they apply then? If there's a few different ways. One, if they just want to reach out to us, there's an email to our planning permits department just to ask questions, confirm. But starting at number one, there on the website under the planning and regulations tab, there's an item submitting permit and planning applications. And in that, it talks about how to contact us either with an inquiry or with an actual permit application. Often we encourage contractors to send an inquiry first to before the actual permit comes in with the payment and everything. Send an inquiry in. This is the property. This is our tile map. This is where we want to install, and just ask what is required here. So then we now know what's going on, where it is, and can tell them the appropriate amount and whether a permit's required or not. And then again, the third one there is just an email that could be sent to the planning permits at Gray Salvo. So next slide. I just thought I'd put it up there. So when you're on the website, it brings up two different forms. You just fill out the forms, put information in, and send in. They're both online forms to send in, and then it just allows us to get the correct and enough information from the proponent or the contractor to be able to give the appropriate response. So next slide. So looking into other approvals, just again, that's kind of what we're looking at, what all approvals are required. So this is not Gray Salvo Conservation, but a road authority approval should be obtained. As Andy was mentioning, a lot of tile drains do outlet into a roadside ditch. And an approval from that authority should be obtained, whether it's the municipality, the county, or the MTO, prior to installing that. I know often when they go to install the tile, then a little bit of ditch cleanout often occurs as well. So of course that should also be approval should be obtained before completing that work as well. Most roadside ditches aren't regulated. So this is where that falls under the municipality or the county. And I've received calls at different times from a road authority just with questions, confirmation, do I have to allow the contractor to drain into my ditch? Or the fun one always, the contractor says I have to lower my ditch because their tile is coming in too low. I've had that one multiple times as well. And so the truth is the road authority doesn't have to lower their ditch, and they don't actually have to allow them to drain to it. But I've explained to municipal road authorities that in my view, if landowners can't drain their lands to a municipal ditch, then where are they allowed to drain it to, unless if there's no water course on the property? So I've always taken it that municipal roads crisscross and go everywhere. They're the ones that really they should be allowing drainage from properties, as long as it's not too onerous. I know the county sometimes is a little more restrictive. I know the MTO is way more restrictive and would probably just say no in a lot of cases. If there's land that isn't draining there now, then they don't want new drainage tiles or anything outletting to it. But each road authority should have their own rules and determine how they want to how they want to deal with these applications. So, next slide. And then, yeah, the other one that comes up, and again, this isn't from the Conservation Authority, but just I feel it's relevant. Tile drainage outlets are often, they'll either under existing conditions, they go to a neighbor's property, or it's the low area of the property, wants to drain that way. And landowners feel that they should be allowed to cross the neighbor's property. If, say, there's a municipal drain on the neighboring property in the middle of the property, they feel they should be allowed to drain to it. And that comes back from what Andy said. Everybody in the watershed is paying and contributing to the municipal drain, but it doesn't necessarily mean everybody has to have a direct outlet to it. And so, some properties that have that, a landowner can give permission to drain across their property or to tile across their property, but they don't have to, and that's up between the two landowners, and that's a private thing. And then anything that is connecting actually into a municipal drain, the municipal drainage superintendent should be contacted as well for permission to do that. As the drainage super, I didn't get a lot of calls for that, even though I knew there was a lot of them that did connect in. And as long as there's no issue, then it's not a big, it's not a concern really. But the drainage superintendent should know where these connections are, where the tiles are. So when they go to do a clean out, they don't rip them out. You can't always see it when the grass builds up. So. Next slide, please. So I just thought I'd give a quick example. I just picked a property here, and it is a county road on the south side, and it is a municipal road on the right side of the picture there. And then you can see the hazard land, which is the blue, and then the regulated area is the yellow. So, this particular property, they don't necessarily have to drain to an area that would require a Conservation Authority permit. They could drain out to the county ditch if the county allowed it. If the other portion, they could drain to the municipal ditch if the municipality allows that. But more than likely, they're going to drain it down to the wet area as the main outlet, because that's where the water goes to and under this. So once that tile for the portions of the property that aren't in the regulated area, we would not require a permit for that. But it's unlikely they're going to stop short of the regulated area. So it's likely that as long if the tile or any part of the tile is going into that yellow area, then we would like them to contact Grace Auble to see about a permit. Our staff then would look at the proposed works and provide confirm yes or no, and provide the cost of it, and if there's anything other documentation or anything they need, but mainly just the tile map, that showing where they're wanting to go and where the tiles are going to be and the size, and that's the main thing that we'd be looking for. Next slide, please. That's all I had for now. Yeah, be happy to ask or answer any questions that you may have or that they brought up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Before we
Okay.
get into questions of the delegation, I did just want to confirm that acknowledge that Member Blair, as you had said, has joined by phone, and communications will give him the option to unmute himself if he has any questions or anything like that. Thank you.
Okay, he actually does have a question. Is there a way for him to communicate through, or?
He should
said-
now have the option to unmute himself.
Okay, do you want to try to ask your question, Blair? There he is.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes,
Hello?
go ahead. Yep, go ahead, Blair.
Just a question for Ian. A lot of these 1960s era municipal projects, they all need maintenance right now. There's tree roots in these tiles and ditches need cleaned out, all kinds of stuff everywhere you look. The people in the drainage positions are all very good people, as you know, you used to be one of them. But you guys are swamped, and it just seems like a lot of these are low cost issues. I'm just wondering if there's a way to expedite some of the lower cost maintenance issues that need to happen on all these older municipal projects.
Yeah. When I was with Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth, we actually went through and did an inspection on every drain at council's request to go through them all and look at that, because that's exactly what I was reporting back was, you know, they're getting so built up and you get so many trees in some of these that then it gets pretty hard to maintain them with an excavator. You almost need a chainsaw and your costs skyrocket. Trying to work with the landowners, like often we have worked with landowners that have backhoes and we've allowed them to do the work or sort of under our supervision to try and, you know, keep costs down. There's every superintendent is different, obviously, in that regard. But if they're qualified and if they can provide the proper insurance and that sort of thing, then we do try to work with them to do that and clean out certain areas. I've also worked with landowners that they're fine doing the work on their own property themselves, and but it is in the drain, so then it's ours. And I've worked with those landowners as well to say, well, if you're gonna, you know, we're not gonna pay you for it, but if you want to be working on, you know, on portions of this, and it's done properly, then again, I have no issues with that. So those were the approaches I always took to try to work with the landowners as best I could to keep the costs down and get it done quickly. As you said, that was one of the big parts as well, while still, you know, following the proper chain. But some of them get so big, the whole thing needs to be cleaned out, and it is hard to prioritize all of them. So moving forward, trying to do them. We had a schedule, so every year we did two drains, and we do the inspection and we clean them out as necessary and consult with landowners. Being proactive was the best way. However, that cost money. You know, for the time for doing the inspections, and that was a commitment from council.
Yeah, we would probably have 3 or 4 municipal drains on our property alone that all need cleaned out, right? So I guess I'm asking, is there a way that maybe we can use the professional drainage contractors that, you know, you could take their word instead of having to look at all of these projects individually? Like, it seems there's a bottleneck here somewhere, right?
Well, I'm not sure which municipality you're in. It comes down to the drainage superintendent as to whether they have time. I do know, I especially near the end of my career, I was very busy and it was hard to keep up on them and to prioritize them. But it was something that we try to stay on top of. You still need the drainage superintendent's permission to be able to do it. If the contractors have a good plan coming forward and you're able to work with the landowners and the permissions are coming pretty quickly, the permissions to get it done can happen fairly quickly. It's usually the tendering and getting the scope figured out in that. So if the contractors are coming forward with a plan and a scope and everything to address it, you know, that does help the drainage superintendent and cut down some of the time and everything. but there are still some channels that need to be followed and approvals that are needed to keep things moving forward. Not sure if I'm answering your question there or not.
All good.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, looks like a question from Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm usually not that polite when I address you, but today I do. So, anyhow, the municipal or the Drainage Act and drainage systems draining into existing water courses, which are sometimes part of municipal draining systems. Again, I find it complicated, but it's the way it is. What act supersedes which act?
Are you referring to the between the if it's a water course, then does the Municipal Drain Act override it? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I wonder, like, if you have you can have a private drainage system that drains into a municipal system, but part of those municipal systems are natural water courses. So where, where do you, or can you break the law, or is it a clear distinction? Or
well, when someone comes forward with improvements that are required, it can involve basically turning a natural water course into a municipal drain. And converting part of it. You still have to follow approvals. There's still, as Andy mentioned, for the fish, there's all these other approvals. And if you're going in and actually digging in a water course, then yeah, that's going to be harder to get approval for than simply, making a new ditch somewhere else and just redirecting water. But it can be done. The Drainage Act it doesn't override, essentially the fact that it's a water course. It's still there. It's still regulated. It still has all of those features in it, but you can clean it out, lower it down, or do something that's necessary to do that. Spring Mountain Drain was one that we did that was a water course, and we lowered it down, cleaned it out, and improved the drainage throughout Spring Mountain, and even changed it significantly with the there's riprap and there's different things on the banks and that those works can be undertaken even though it is a natural water course.
Thank you.
Okay, question from Councillor Ardell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question either to Ian or Andy. In 2021, we were looking at doing some more drainage on our farm here, and we had a very difficult time trying to find a contractor. They were all so busy. I'm just wondering how many licensed drainage installers are there, maybe just in our area, Grey Bruce, because we contacted several and we didn't get anything put in the ground till last year. And so we could not replant our trees until we had drainage. You can't plant apple trees. They cannot get wet feet. So it took a long time to get a license. So I was just wondering about how many there is in the province.
There are approximately 100 licensed contractors in the province. Okay. The ministry, we actually have a website, a map page that you can access to see where the contractors are located. Okay, and then there are some of the contractors that will do local work, while there are some contractors that will do move farther afield.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Question from Brenda.
I'm not sure who to address this to, but I'm just wondering, we're just talking about straight tile draining here, but is there any discussion about changes to policy or whatnot to look into some of the newer systems which allow flow out and flow back? Like I think there were some experimental systems that were done, and one of the counties south of us, like a big one, Mel Lamas wrote about it in the Rural Voice, it was with the conservation areas. So a way to drain in a more controlled way and to choose to actually reverse the flow of the water. I mean, as we're going having some sort of climate change resilience, if some of that water is like drained but held to then send back in more droughty situations, as some of these systems maybe seem to be able to do. Have you seen or heard anything in the landscape about anybody moving towards these, or is it still kind of too experimental right now?
Andy might be able to talk more about it better, but there is, with controlled drainage, basically you end up putting in a essentially almost like a gate valve, if you will, that you manually close, so that in the spring when you have too much water, you can leave it open and let the water drain. But then in the summer, you can close it and try and keep as much water there as possible. And you're basically shutting off the drains. Again, I haven't done a lot in our area on the tile drainage, but of all the projects that I have seen, I haven't seen it implemented or requested. It's really a landowner thing that they would want to do it. Now, being the role I'm in now, I'd like to try and encourage more of that and encourage some of these technologies that, WASCOBs, or, a water sediment control basin, where they're basically, you just take the low point, the creek in your property, and you put a berm up there to hold some water, and still will spill over in that, but it helps with sediment control, and it helps with, again, keeping water on the land at times, but letting it go when it's wet. But unfortunately, no, in our area hasn't been a lot of that to this point, but we'd sure love to see more of it. Do you have anything to add there, Andy? Or
yes. So we actually, again, on Ag Maps, we actually have we did a study, and this was quite a while ago. We did a study of areas that were compatible with controlled drainage subsurface irrigation. Okay. The problem with that is you need fairly flat land, because if you have tile drainage in a more rolly landscape, what happens is the water flows to that low spot. And if you're holding the water in that tile drain and the water flows to that low spot, it will actually come out through the surface of the ground. Okay. Huron View is doing a, what do you call it? Huron View is a experimental site. So Huron Soil and Crop Association have a site at Huron View in Clinton where they have a controlled drainage system installed on a more rolling landscape. Okay. With that rolling landscape, you actually have to set your control structures in at a certain location, and it requires more control structures. So there's research being done there to see whether that the return on investment is there for that type of project. Okay. There is not a lot of controlled drainage being done on a commercial basis.
And just as a follow-on question, to have these more controlled setups, are we talking like 2 or 3 times the cost of like just a normal drainage system? Or are we talking like 50% more, 10% more, or you just have no idea?
That's a hard number to quantify, because it really becomes site specific on how sloped your soil is and how many more control structures you need, right? And then there is quite a range in the cost of control structures. I believe the commercial control structures that they were buying for Huron View were $1,500 a piece. And I think they were building them for a lot, like building structures themselves for a lot less money. Okay, so it like I said, it really depends on the system and what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
It also depends on the farmer too. It becomes another management thing for them to do. So that it all depends on that as well. So
that's a very good point. It becomes another management thing, and there are potential for the control structures to be automated. But at this point, it is a management thing, yes. Sid and I went down to, I believe it was Ohio State 10 years ago, and they were talking about controlled drainage at that time. And they were showing that in a good year with good management, they might get a 10% increase. In a poor year with poor management, they had a 10% decrease in yield. So it is very much about management.
Perfect. Okay. Scott, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Andy and Ian, can you just quickly talk about the cost for municipal drains and the maintenance and how the costs are proportioned out to the various landowners?
Sure. You want me to jump in there, Andy, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead if you want.
Yep. So with the municipal drains, as part of that engineer's report that gets prepared, in that, then they come up with a design, plans, drawings showing everything that's going to happen. They should provide a cost estimate for all of the works, which includes all the engineer's time, all the the construction, everything. And then that all gets assessed out to everybody in the watershed. So everybody that's has any part of their property that drains down to the municipal drain, they would be paying a portion of it. The engineers to decide how much of that is for benefit, meaning that they get a direct benefit out of it. And that's typically the properties that the drain is on. But properties that, even though they're not on the drain, they don't see the drain, but their land drains down to it eventually, whether it's through a roadside ditch or any other means, it gets down to the drain. They also contribute for what they call outlet. So they have to pay a portion, and it's usually the ones that are paying the most are the ones that are on the drain and that are receiving the direct benefit of having it. And then, it sometimes depends also on usually the property that is requesting it, or if there's multiple properties requesting it, they're the ones that are seeing a benefit because they obviously needed that drain to put in and request it. So they end up sort of paying the most generally. And then the lands that just require outlet, then they don't usually pay as much, but it always comes down to every situation. But yeah, every landowner again, that drains to it has to contribute some cost to it. And that isn't just for the original construction. For maintenance, anytime it's cleaned out in the future or anything like that, the costs are still assessed at that point out to the landowners for maintenance of the works as well.
So I'm going to add a little bit more there. So Sid always talked about for outlet, it was like a toll road. So the water that was on that drain for the most distance paid the most cost as far as outlet. Okay, so if you're right at the outlet, if you're right near the outlet of the drain, your outlet costs are going to be fairly small. As Ian said, you will have larger benefit costs, but your outlet costs are going to be fairly small. The other thing is in each of the engineer's reports, there is a maintenance statement. So I do review the grant stuff for municipal drains. There is a maintenance statement. And in that maintenance statement, the engineer basically tells the superintendent or the treasurer how to assess the costs of that drainage project out. And what the act says is that the maintenance will be assessed out under the then current bylaw. Okay, so the engineer's report may have just a construction assessment schedule and the maintenance statement says use that, or it may have a maintenance statement or maintenance assessment schedule and the maintenance statement in the report says use that. Okay, and basically those are the assessment schedules that you get used, and the schedule is used from the location, the furthest location downstream of where the work was done to the upstream portion of the drain. Okay, so anybody, like if you're right at the outlet and the work isn't being done at the outlet, you would not be assessed any maintenance. It would, the assessment for maintenance would start at the location where the work was done and work upstream. Does that answer your question?
Perfect. We got a thumbs up from Councillor Mackey. Next on the list, we have Randy with a question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Reid. A couple of questions. Where a tile drainage project is proposing to outlet into a roadside ditch, who's responsible for notifying or getting approvals from the road authority? So that's, I guess, my first question. Second would be, I think, Andy, you mentioned egg maps in some of your responses to some of the questions. Does OMAFRA map where tile drainage projects have either been applied for or have been approved, in terms of that's available or can be made available to municipalities and others, just in terms of sharing data and information? So those are my two questions there.
I'll jump in here, at least on the first one. Your question, I think, is it the landowner's responsibility to get permission, or is it the contractor's responsibility to get permission from the road authority? I guess it would be either one. I mean, you can't dig on somebody else's property without permission. So, that's, everybody should know that from the contractor. Most landowners, I would think, would hire the contractor to do that and to get all the approvals. And to be honest, it's usually easier dealing with the contractor who's done this before. They know what's required in that, and they've done it. They've dealt with road authorities. They've dealt with conservation authorities. They know these permits are in place, and they know what. If there's any work happening on a road authority, then it should be the contractor, because they're the ones that should be getting with the encroachment permit or whatever permit is required to do the work. They should be the ones providing the insurance. They should. So in my opinion, it should be the contractor that's getting that approval and making the call and to do that. So, Andy, you want to answer the second one?
I'm gonna add some more to yours, Ian. Okay. And I think it's both individuals' responsibility. Okay. I think ultimately it is the landowner's responsibility, because it's his infrastructure that's being encroached onto the road authority. Okay. But that being said, I agree with Ian in the fact that the contractor should be doing it, because should whether he lets the landowner do it, he needs to make sure, or he or she needs to make sure that it has been done. Okay, because we've had that with contractors, that have said, yeah, I let the landowner do this, this, and this, and then it turns out that when I go to do my work, I did my work, and I find out that I don't have permission to do what I needed to do. Right, so it is both. Okay. The second question you had as far as ag maps, okay. So part of the legislation is that the contractors are required to submit their installation work for the previous year when they renew their business license. Okay, so we do have that. We do have drainage information on ag maps that's available to anyone. The only issue is that we're capturing polygons, we're not capturing line work. Okay, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so we'll show the area being drained. We don't necessarily show the actual tile drainage line, the laterals, where the laterals run to. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. It's helpful.
Okay, any other questions? I maybe just had a quick one, and this actually might be more towards Scott, yourself. I think the reason why we're talking about drainage is maybe there is some issues coming through to the county. It's my kind of thoughts that further south, there is more like drainage inspectors on staff with local municipalities, and in our region, we don't really have that as much. And I think that some of the drainage contractors that are coming up from further afield are used to having, a quick text or a copy of, a quick contact to their drainage inspector. And I think they come up here and don't have that same connection. And I'm wondering if there is a proper outlet and all of the paperwork and everything is done correctly, but there could be a negative effect of water draining onto a neighboring property. Is that maybe one of the reasons you're getting the calls, or what happens in that case if there is problem from a neighboring situation?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mr. Chair. I can take a stab at this one, but would invite maybe Trevor from a roads perspective to weigh in here as well. From a county planning perspective, we don't actually get a lot of calls on tile drainage. Occasionally we do. I think a lot of those questions probably come into our municipal partners more directly, or to people like Ian at the Conservation Authority. We've had the occasional question from either the public or from county councillors in the past with respect to cumulative impacts. And so if multiple farmers all in one geographic area are all draining to X, Y, or Z water course or X, Y, or Z roadside ditches, is there someone looking at those cumulative effects versus sort of a permit by permit basis? The only other one I've had is somebody that was looking at development plans, and they had done a lot of their preliminary drainage work. They hadn't gotten any approvals yet, and then found out that the neighboring farmer had, in their words, drained onto their property with a new tile drainage project without their permission. So it was quite a lengthy discussion at that point between the county, the municipality, and the Conservation Authority with respect to whether or not there was any rectification that could go on there or any consequences for that drainage going onto their property. But beyond that, it's not something I get regularly involved with. Trevor, sort of put you on the spot. Is there anything you want to share from County Transportation Services perspective?
Yeah, I can speak to some elements from at least from a engineering and transportation perspective. What we find a lot, we do get a lot of encroachment permits for drain tile applications, usually through contractors more than kind of the property owners. But that's not always the case. There are several instances where, we've got our area supervisors driving around and all of a sudden they notice a tile crew working in a field and all of a sudden there's a drain tile going into the ditch. So for the most part, we obviously want to know about that. And when we do see that, we approach them and say, hey, do you have your permit and all of that? And I would say 80 to 90% of the tile drains that go in usually get permits. There are a few that kind of, fly by night and appear out of nowhere. And whether that's just because the farmers have the understand that they think they can use the ditch. And a lot of times that's the perception that, the ditch is there and they can just drain to it and use it how they like. There are instances where we have had tile drains go in, and for the most part, we don't require anything, like no sort of study of how much water that tile drain will put into our ditches. For the most part, everyone's just asking if they can do it. Where that becomes a risk for the county is if all of a sudden there's increased flow from 2 or 3 more tile drains that appear in a ditch. We've had instances where, one of our road crossing culverts gets blown out in a heavy storm because of all the increased velocity and that from drainage water. So we do have issues with that, but I don't necessarily think it's the county's responsibility to force all additional studies and all on the farmers, because again, that's additional cost to them. But in the same capacity, we're concerned with infrastructure downstream as well as residents downstream of, what impacts all this additional water has in our systems.
For sure. Ian, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of add to that, I guess. In a lot of ways, when a tile drainage is going in, as long as it's draining the same area that was already draining to an outlet, then you know, it shouldn't really increase it by that much. The problem comes down when you're taking an entire farm where half of it was draining to one outlet and half it's draining to a different outlet. And then if the whole thing gets tiled to come to one spot, usually that's difficult to do, so it doesn't often happen. But you don't want to be changing watersheds as to what's draining where, and taking land that wasn't draining out to a county ditch and then draining the whole thing to there, and that ditch goes to a different outlet. That's where you get into issues of water being redirected where it shouldn't be. And that point is when road authorities should certainly be stepping in and saying, whoa, this is water that wasn't draining to our property before. If it was draining over land and it's getting there, and now they've just tile drained the same land to get there, you know, I'm not going to say there's no increase, but it still has to drain through the soils. It all depends on the soils and the depth and all that sort of thing for where it's going. But that's the main thing always that I advised road authorities to look at, is just make sure that they're not draining lands that weren't going there before, or that were going to a different outlet.
Good. That's great. Any other questions while Ian and Andy are still on the call? Just a comment too, I know Lori from Gray Ag, we are hoping to do a drainage course too. So with Gray Ag Services, so it could be some potential topics if you guys are interested in anything to do with tile drainage. We're hoping to do that this winter. So Lori's nodding, so I'm glad she's doing that. Councillor Mackey, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, Ian and Andy, if a municipality is petitioned, what is the responsibility of the municipality as far as implementing a drainage, a new drainage ditch, for example?
So if a petition is submitted to the municipality, then they have to receive it, and then they retain an engineer to look at it first. And the first thing the engineer does is to look at, is it a valid petition that has been submitted? As in, is there the proper number of landowners? Is, you know, looking at the area requiring drainage, you need to have either half of the landowners or 60% of the land, or owners of 60% of the land area have to have signed on. So right off the bat, that's the first thing. And if the answer is no, it's not a valid petition, then the whole thing, that the engineer goes back to council and says that. But if it's a valid petition and it comes in, and then really the engineer comes back to council, and it should move forward with an on-site meeting and some, you know, at least some review and discussion and as to what needs to be done, what is the extent of it, and go through that process. I'm not going to go through the whole process, I don't think, but I think that's just sort of, you know, in getting it going, that's the first thing. Is council can't really just reject it right off the bat without it going to an engineer. It should be received and taken that way. Have the engineer shoot it down if it's not appropriate and not doesn't meet the Drainage Act. All of that is spelled out in the Drainage Act very specifically as to what needs to be followed. So I'm sure Andy can explain it better than I did. But
No, I think the thing that I would add is, if council doesn't move forward, the landowner who submitted the petition has the right to appeal, and I believe it's to the tribunal. And then the tribunal will hear the appeal and make a decision.
Okay, great. If there's no other questions, thank you to both of you for joining the call today. And yeah, it's can be contentious, and lots of misconceptions can be had, and clarifying that today is step number one for making that conversation easier. So thank you both for attending.
Thank you
for having us.
Moving on the agenda, and item number 4, we have 4 different items just to discuss. 4A is Share the Road campaign. I'm sure all of you have probably heard that on radio, on the Country 93 at least. So that is Heather Aljo and Kalina Sanford. if you could speak to those. And thank you, Mr. Farmer, I think is the end of it, how it goes.
Yeah, well, I think Savannah's going to speak more to the Share the Road campaign, but in addition to that, we had a marketing campaign with the Culinary Tourism Alliance, who toured around Grey County a few weeks ago, October 3rd to 5th, I believe it was. And this was a dual active approach for the CTA content tour. We started engagement with them to prepare for our 2024 Gather marketing campaign, which is going to be heavily focused around the agritourism. So we wanted to kind of tease with the CTA the unique agritourism that we have in Grey County while building our assets to prepare our marketing content for the 2024 campaign. So we do have a slide deck.
Do you want me to share it, Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. Have we jumped ahead an item? We're
on B.
talking about the, because I think first we're hoping to address the Share the Road campaign.
Share the Road,
and then
okay,
move on to
sorry, that was
Gather.
internal. No, that's okay. I can go real quick. Rob and I are going to just do a quick little update on this. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing the campaign. It has been live for a little while. So we just wanted to come and give you a quick verbal update on it. When we had our meeting in July and we brought you the themes of the Economic Development, Tourism, and Culture Master Plan, a big piece of that conversation was around the education and marketing and the concern that this committee was sharing. And we thought, you know what, that's something that we can probably jump on right away and start to communicate. So we went back and we took over half of our county billboards with the Share the Road campaign. There's for cyclists, for tractors and farm implements, as well as our horse and buggy, because we know that there is a real importance for all of us to share the road, and it's our dual responsibility as everybody on the road to be sharing it. So we took that back and created a billboard campaign along with social media and website components that will continue to roll out as we go, and then the radio piece as well. So I don't know if I can share. Oh, apparently I have a lot of windows open. Let me just see here if I can share that. Can you see that sheet? So this is the copy of one of the 3 billboards, but all billboards have the same icons on each, just to remind people, no matter where they see them, that Grey County really wants you to share the road. And that is very important to us and really valuable to our agricultural economy as well, because it, as we talked about, you are one of our key sectors, one of our foundational sectors, and we need to do everything possible to be able to, serve the sector and provide a good value. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then you will have also seen that in the correspondence attached here. There was an article in Ontario Farmer that is also talking about the Share the Road campaign, and then the radio side, Rob's going to talk about because he did a lot of work organizing the campaign side on the radio.
Thanks, Savannah. Yeah, so after that last meeting, we put our heads together and we came up with just some idea of key messaging that we'd like to use in this campaign. And it made sense that radio would have to be a big part of this. Obviously, if it's a Share the Road, that's people are in their vehicles. So that's where you want to get them, and billboards made sense to go with that. So we did arrange a Share the Road campaign on the radio, as Chair Reid mentioned. So we had have ads going on Country 93, Mix 106, and CFOS. And the campaign started on September 16th, and it's going to run until the 26th of October. We do have the possibility that we can extend that a little bit too, I think. If we look internally through budgets, we'll be able to do that. And our frequency that we're trying to go with is about 15 occurrences per station per day per week that's airing on each station. And I'm just going to share one of the 2 ads with you now.
You're cruising down the highway. The kids are in the back with their tablets when suddenly the traffic grinds to a halt. Look at the size of those tires on that tractor. Why don't we just go around it?
Please don't pass on a hill or curve. Farming vehicles make wide turns and might not have turn signals. You have precious cargo, and so do the farmers. They could literally be carrying your next meal. So give them room and don't pass till it's safe. This message brought to you by Grey County.
So that was one of the two. The second one was, it was a similar message. It was a different setting with a parent and child in the back seat. If you're listening, you'll see that we did sneak some subtle economic messages in there too about the important value of farmers to the community, and credit to Steve Furness for really bringing that to our attention when we were looking at that we should get that in there. So just to leave off on this, I'd just like to say too that we're going to, I think, maintain this on the communications work plan in 2024, that we're going to have some dedicated spring campaign and fall campaign, maybe not to the full extent, but we want to get repetition so that people are hearing these same messages over and over and over again. And we're going to extend that beyond just the ag messaging as well to those other groups, but ag will certainly be a part of all of that.
Great, thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions for Rob and Savannah? Simon?
Well, certainly a comment. I congratulate the county to taking that initiative, and I hope that a lot of counties will follow Grey County's example. At our farm organizations, we have been talking about this, and we are on our farm. We have had 3 encounters with accidents, and I was hit by a dump truck there in 2009. I was fortunate enough to stay in the saddle, and it had a good ending, but it isn't always that way. So there again, and it breaks my heart. When you're south of Alamut, I know that there's the county line there, but to cross a stair from little children that got thrown out of a buggy, somebody hitting it at good speed, and anyhow, can't do enough of this. And there again, I can't thank you enough for taking this initiative.
Great, super. And another in the chat there too. Well done from Carrie Davenport as well. So thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? If not, we will move on to
I think Gail has. I think Gail has her hand up.
Sorry, Gail. Go ahead.
That's okay. I couldn't get my hand up fast enough. Yes, through the chair, thank you very much for that education component. We raised that at our agricultural advisory committee as well. But when we went to our town, they said a lot of these activities are happening on county roads, and they don't want to put signage on county roads. So what we were looking for would maybe be some type of signage with tractors on Grey Road 40, Grey Road 2, 13, maybe 19, where we're having a lot of movement with large tractors and cyclists, or even just cars. But any kind of education is wonderful, but we were just wondering about signage, if we could get some on our county roads in Blue Mountains. I don't know who wants to tackle that.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. We, as Rob said, we want to continue rolling this out, and we want to continue expanding this. But in addition, that is connected, but not completely connected, is through the Cycling Trails Master Plan work. And we're going to be installing share the road signage basically across the entire county. That is one of the key drivers coming out of that plan, which aligns very, very well to this. So between those yellow share the road signs, along with billboards, along with radio, and then website and social media, we are hoping that we're going to just keep going with the same message over and over and over until it sinks in. But
good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, super. Great. Moving on then, back to the Gather Agritourism campaign. Sorry for the confusion there. That's Heather? Yes, or
Heather and Kalina. Heather and I are gonna
Kalina, yeah.
are going to present it dually. So essentially this is a presentation just of the resounding success of the content tour. So Heather will begin with the presentation.
Sure, you guys can see my screen. Yep. So as Kalina mentioned, we are gearing up for our Gather 2024 campaign. Some of you will remember that we tried this in 2020 and then couldn't make it go as gathering was not actually allowed in 2020. So we are ready to take it on in 2024, and it will definitely have a big agritourism focus. But we will be bringing Gather in a few other ways too, gathering friends, gathering family, gathering memories. It'll be a full year campaign. So in order to prepare for that, we brought up the Culinary Tourism Alliance on sort of a familiarization tour in October for 3 nights and 4 days. They were here. They have been wonderful since the beginning, since we started working with them earlier in the year, trying to figure out when they could come. And we were so happy they could come in the fall when we know our agritourism is at one of its best seasons for sure. So they covered a lot of social media while they were here. They have just over 25,000 followers on their Instagram, and we have an additional 8,500 on ours, and they were posting constantly. They posted just under, I think they posted 30 stories while they were here over that time. So every single stop they went to, even some stops where they just went in quickly to grab something to eat or a coffee, they would feature it and tag it. So it would link back to the businesses on their social media. They will be producing 6 blogs on their website. They've already posted the first one, which was the one you see a screenshot of here. So they will continue putting those out over the next 12 months, featuring all the different businesses, and we will feature those on our social media and website as well. And we also will receive all photos and video that they took while they were here. And they really only guaranteed us 5 to 10 photos per stop, but we've already received hundreds. They've just given us everything they took on their phone and everything they took on through a professional photographer they had traveling with them as well. So they're really great photos. Sorry, I should have skipped ahead when we did our story. So these are the type of Instagram stories. These are just screenshots. So all of these were animated. They were videos. They were them walking into the businesses, walking past the apples that were for sale, getting served a drink at the Bruce Wine Bar. And then you'll see they shared them, and then we shared them on our Instagram as well. So we were reaching well over 35,000 viewers just in our followers, and then people could share the stories from there. So they had a lot of good interaction through Instagram mainly. They don't do a lot of posting on Facebook. Their followers are quite a bit lower because they really like that sort of Instagram reel action that they do through Instagram. These are some of the photos that have come back. Was a really great mix of the meals they had, the places they were at. They showed a lot of the actual farm happening at Side Road Farms, Secret Lands, and I think those are the only 2 actual farms they went to. But again, they are the Culinary Tourism Alliance, so they were really focused on the agritourism and the food culinary side. So we have access to all of these photos. There's their dinner set up at Down Home by Sumac and Salt, and a lot of great product photos as well that we can then use on our own next year as part of Gather 2024. And this is more Kalina, your side, but I think I'll skip ahead and then I'll go back. You can just see on our side of things, just that 4-day period that they were here, we had a huge spike in our reach on both Facebook and Instagram, just promoting their visit and tagging the different businesses and sharing their stories. So we were really happy about that. And we received a lot of followers that would have been Culinary Tourism Alliance followers that were then interested in what we have here at Grey County. So they came back to our accounts that will now follow us. So that's sort of the marketing side of things. And I'll let Kalina take it away for insights and the operator outreach.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the campaign insights from the Culinary Tourism Alliance. As you see, they did put it on Facebook, driving to their blog. These are really early numbers because the blogs just went up. So just about 12,000 reached on the blog number 1 from Facebook, and then 10,000. So they're reaching over 20,000 people driving to the blog, which then is a whole comprehensive story of the locations that they went to. And we are, again, going to get 6 of those. So it's great. Impressions, we had 20,000 on Facebook and 10,000 plays for the reels on Instagram. So again, we're really happy with the cost effectiveness of the campaigns and the reach that is gathering. for the content tour. And beyond this, we did reach out then to our 16 participating operators, because we want to now see what these campaigns do for their audience as well. And we want to create that engagement direct with our operators. So those are the participating operators that they stopped at over the 3 days that they were here. And following the campaign, I sent out a form to these 16 operators asking for 3 quick questions if they had any qualitative data that they could share with us. And that's just some good words, any sort of feedback that they had from customers who were there, or any of their what they felt from there. And also if they saw any increases or spikes in their social on their website while we were amplifying through Reels. And reported back, an average of 2% was reported increase on social platform reach during the campaign runs. 2% reported increase in social engagement. So those are the likes, the shares, the loves, everything like that. And this was one reported back, but it's a significant increase, 40% in web traffic during the campaign. So they saw it and then they went directly to their website, and you can anticipate that industry benchmark with tourism is about 4%. When you get them to their website is going to be a conversion rate. So that's a great qualifier for this operator. Just did a little word cloud there with a pumpkin of just some of the good words that they had. It was super social, great, well, story, loved it, great. Like they had some great feedback from the operators. One shared an email that she got directly from, basically it was I'm going to get the name wrong, the Blackbird Pie Company. Is that right, Heather? Yes. So she had a neighboring house just up the road a bit, and they contacted her and said, I had no idea that you had classes. So this is one of our Gray residents. Now it's reaching out to there. She's like, I'm definitely going to attend one of your classes. So it's really, really good. Our operators loved this campaign. So we were impressed. We're happy with the engagement, the stats that we got, and then even the engagement back from our operators, reflective of the campaign. And we have some really good content to work with for next year. So that's all for that campaign.
Cool, that's interesting stuff. Any questions or comments for the two? No, hearing none. Okay, we will move on. 4C, which is the Sydenham Fall Fair. Verbal update from Steve Furness.
Thank you, Keith. And I really should be turning this over to you as chair of the Sydenham Ag Society, but I don't know if we have our PowerPoint presentation, just to give a little verbal, so not verbal, but a visual of the Sydenham Ag Society hosted the Sydenham Fall Fair, which is, I believe, the longest, Keith, you can correct me, the longest running school fall fair, agricultural fall fair in North America, or is that, I don't know if that's been verified, but could just go run through these quick slides. Just give a lot of credit to the Ag Society for taking full advantage of the Sydenham campus. Between Eastridge School and the campus, they had all kinds of activities, and just showcasing what the kids were doing at the school and the different clubs, you know, whether it's sheep or cows or pigs. The entire field and facility was used, including the gym. So they did a great job. And I just ask Keith if you wanted to add anything to that from your perspective.
Yeah, well, for sure. So this year was 170 years. So it is definitely the longest standing fair. It is very rare. I think there's only one other fair in Canada right now, which is, I think it's Belmore or Belgrave. I can't remember the which bell. But anyways, it is a very rare beast, and we have such a changing demographic. And the reason for the move to the Sydenham campus, which has been just a tremendous help, and we can't thank the county enough for that invitation. Through the years, there's always been some administration that has been a little bit easier and a little bit harder to deal with, and the board has had a rule or a policy that there's no livestock on school campus, school properties. So the connection to the Sydenham campus has been just amazing. The open doors that we've received has been great. So 800 students in Eastridge School now, and I think the paper there was someone actually said that there's probably only 15 farm families in the 800 students. So I mean, it's just a changing demographic, and you can see that in our local schools. The catchment area for Eastridge is still fairly rural. So it's I think now more important to have the school fair than it ever has, just for the fact of they just have no idea. Everything's a cow if it has 4 feet, and just the chance to see and smell a pig up close is just a great experience. So we do thank the county for opening up your facility for sure.
Thanks, Keith. And we look forward to hosting you again. And I just forwarded your contact information from our climate action people. I think there's talk of getting it bigger and better, and maybe a community garden. So I congratulate the committee and yourself. This is the second year you had it here, and it worked really well. And I don't know how else you can grow it, but you certainly grew it from last year, and it was great. So that's all. Thank you.
Perfect. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, we will move on to 4D, which is the Simon, you have your hand up.
Well, anyhow, there again, Keith, thank you very much, and to the planners, county and other planners on behalf of the OAS. We can't thank you enough for doing this and showcasing agriculture in a very rural, in a very urban setting. Like it's very. I think you're right. There's only one school fair like that in, I believe it's Nova Scotia, but I'm not even sure where it is. Nobody seemed to know where the other one is, but we all know where Sydenham Fair is.
Yeah, there is one in Huron County, and I believe it's Belmore, I believe so. But anyways, yes, thanks, Simon, for that. Moving on, Savannah for the Economic Development, Tourism and Culture Master Plan.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We wanted to bring an update back to you following the meeting that we had. You were part of our last round of consultations, which was really, really helpful. And I hope that, the updates we're able to bring you today, you can see that we're really listening and we're really excited about being able to do this work, and the guidance and honesty that you've given us to be able to do that has been very, very helpful. So we brought our Economic Development, Tourism, Culture Master Plan, which proudly has agri-food right on the front. You can't really see it from my screen, but you do have an attachment of it in the minutes, or in the agenda, sorry. We brought it to council on October 12th, following unanimous endorsement from our Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee, from all of our municipal staff and community partners, and our Economic Development, Tourism and Culture staff team. And then we had unanimous endorsement again at County Council. So we feel really, really proud of the work that we've been able to do. And this strategy is very much a made in Gray strategy. This is something that staff and our consultants co-wrote based on what we heard and based on the expertise that we can bring to the table, and what we think and feel is really important to be able to tackle right off the hop. So the Great Reset, it really is about carrying our best work forward. It's about taking new focus where we haven't done it before, because we know that now is the time, and giving ourselves permission to say no to things that we don't need to prioritize anymore, or at this present moment, we just can't prioritize based on the resources or the needs that we're currently seeing. So it is a lengthy document, but it's also a very kind of strict document for us. So we only have 21 economic development and tourism actions and 22 Grey Roots actions for the next 5 years. So we've laid out a 10-year vision. We've got 5-year action plans that are very, very, I think, reasonable and achievable and will move that bar forward. So as part of this, we took a look back to say, what have we accomplished collectively between us and our member municipalities and our community partners to set the new bar? And that's the bar that we're now working from. And that's where these strategies have really come from. So we'll begin all of the work in January, but you can tell we're starting to tease out some of the early works that we know we can accomplish right away, and very excited to set that path forward. The other piece that I think is really important to talk about in the strategy is that you'll notice if you look through it, we don't have actions specific to each of our core sectors outside of tourism. So you don't see an entire page dedicated to agriculture. You don't see an entire page dedicated to clean energy or any of our other sectors, because we want to be able to lean on the document collectively and the actions collectively and pick and choose what makes sense where to advance the work in each of our sectors so that we're supporting all. And that's part of why you see the team here that you have today. So we've pulled our economic development officers, our tourism marketing communications officers, our business enterprise officers, our managers, multiple departments. That's the approach that we want to be able to take through this strategy. This is a multi-departmental, multifunctional group where we're putting all our minds together and then figuring out how we take it from there. So that is kind of a high-level overview of what is in the plan. We're very much using this to share resources, to build capacity, to take a leadership role. And some of the things that we talked about in July were on the networking, the education, marketing, looking at policies and advocacy. Those roles you find in this strategy. And I think we just wanted to be able to come back to this group and say that we heard you. We are very committed to continuing to work with you. And we hope that, through these meetings, you can continue to share your insights and your knowledge and your expertise, because it is so valuable for us to then take it back and start to do work on the ground. So we just wanted to lay that out for you. And I think, every meeting we'll try and bring you an update, because we meet quarterly. If we can continue to do that, to say, this is where we are today, this is what's coming down the pipeline, we will do that. And then bring you updates on some of the major projects that are happening that are specific to ag. So I'll stop there, but if you have any questions, please let me know and I'm happy to answer.
Okay, any questions, comments for Savannah? Hearing none. Thank you for that. Next on the agenda is number 5, roundtable discussion. So this is an opportunity for kind of the grassroots to bring anything forward that is something that could be a topic for another meeting, or anything that's going on that is useful for the rest of the Ag Advisory Committee to acknowledge. So I open the floor to that. Everybody's quiet. Oh, Brenda.
We wouldn't be quiet for long, right, Keith? I just wanted to bring to the group that the NFU Grey Local had a really successful land sharing event on, oh God, what was it, September 17th? I can't remember anymore. That Scott came and spoke with us, and Lori attended it. And yeah, it was actually a really good time to hear from a lot of different stakeholders, both farmers who had land, farmers who were looking for land, and it's just like a beginning part of the conversation. And I'm just wanted to let everybody know that we're starting to talk about this a lot more. Lori's going to be having something at Grey Bruce Farmers Week on Eco Day. We are doing a bit of a follow-up, more of a sharing circle kind of a thing in November 4th, I believe, just in one of our members' living rooms, essentially, for people to come and just share a bit about their sort of struggles with this all. But it's just, housing, of course, is an issue provincially, whatever, nationally, and within this county as well. But, this idea of having access to land and having access to places to live, I'm sure, is top of mind for for Grey County as well. So anyway, I just wanted to just keep that top of mind, because for farm workers, for farm owners, any resources we can put towards, I know that there was a time when Grey County did do some land linking type events. So any of those things I think would be very well received, just because there are a lot of people looking, and there's the resources available are sort of piecemeal, and they can be hard to figure out, especially when people are already having really mixed feelings about all of this sort of thing. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Brenda, you're also on a panel coming up too at the Bayshore. Is that the end of the month?
Yeah, forgot about that. Regenerating the Land. It's the third part of like a 3-part documentary series. That means after this weekend, I've finished my land deliveries in Toronto. I need to go watch the movie. But the idea here is that we are in living landscapes. I mean, we look at a lot about the climate crisis, and it seems to be reduced to some sort of a carbon issue or just a GHG emission issue. But really, it's like it's a whole land use issue, right? It's how our soils act as sponges, how the water cycle works, how life generates life, on our planet. So I think one of the reasons why like Regenerate Grey Bruce, as well as us, and I think the Sustainability Project, there's a few different groups that are sponsoring this set of viewings and discussions. There's often a lot of like lack of hope or like fear and anger around like the climate crisis and what we can or cannot do about it. And I think that these movies just sort of show us that, we're part of the whole cycle. We're not powerless in it all, and that there are ways to move forward. So I'm hoping that it's a hopeful discussion with the whole group. So I do invite you guys. I don't remember the other dates right now, but the first 2 parts have some viewings around the Grey Bruce, but October 26th at the Bayshore is the last piece, which is, I need to watch them, sorry. I do know about the movies, I just haven't had time to watch the actual videos yet, but thank you for that, Keith, reminding me.
No problem, sounds good, thanks. Hugh, it looks like you have a hand up.
Yep, I just put my hand up, Keith, to just offer a quick reflection. And I guess a congratulations and a thank you to the people around the table today. I'm hearing from staff, and I'm hearing from people on council and committee members and so on. There was a time before ag advisory committees, whether they were at county levels or municipal levels or conservation authorities and so on, 10 years ago or so, where agriculture, agritourism, farming in general, they were talked about, but I'm hearing really positive messages about building it into our strategy. The last presenter talked about, the strategic plan and the inputs that her group have received. And we heard about some ongoing, public relations, safety campaign messages, all that really do integrate a farming message. And, if I reflect on from 10 years ago or so, it wasn't as prevalent. And so I think it's gratifying to see it. I think it is it's a good trend, and I think it will be good if we can continue it. I think it'll be good for Grey County and anyone who decides to follow us. So thanks again to staff and any of the politicians or other leadership on the committee that have done the work on this stuff. It's really nice to see.
Great, thanks Hugh for that. A little positive goes a long way, so that's great. Looks like Councillor Ardell, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you to everybody on this committee. The town of the Blue Mountains has started to educate people as well. So we, on September 30th, had a very successful Open Fields, which is a Blue Mountain farm tour. So we had so many people. It was a wonderful day. It was a sunny day. We had more people come out. We're still waiting for the results of that. We did have counters. I think at one of the farms, we had 5 farms, which were TK Ferry Orchards. We had the Farmer's Pantry. We had Georgian Hills Vineyards. We had Kimber Valley, which was just across the border into Grey Highlands, but that was okay. And Silver Springs Farm. And at the last minute, we had the Bay Growers, one of our packing plants, and they opened up, and they had not that many spots, but they were taken up so quickly for tours of our plant. And so it was a huge, huge success. I believe at the Farmer's Pantry, at I think it was noon when I got there, I went to visit all of the farms, and they had about 600 people already there. So it was very, very successful. We're so proud of our Tim Henry and Al Gibson who showcased this and started this process for us. And we had some of our staff helping. We just couldn't get enough volunteers. It was so busy. And so it was a huge, huge success. And I can share later on when we do get our numbers from this, but we had a lot of local people, but we had a lot of tourism come to this event too. And people from Meaford and Collingwood and wherever, and they said, I didn't realize there was that many farms in the Blue Mountains. And so they were all excited. And, you know, Silver Springs did beef, you know, the apples, you know, just the packing plant. People had never been in a packing plant before. So it was just, so I just can't rave about it enough. So I thank you for the economic team at Grey County and everybody else who contributed to this. It was overwhelmingly, surprisingly successful. And this was the first, so we will be doing this again next year.
Yes, that's great. I did hear a little bit about it as well, so I'm glad you brought it up. I had Rob Lipsett queued in to talk about it. He was there as part of Beef Farmers of Ontario at the McKinley Farm, talking about the importance of grasslands and cattle on the landscape. And he said there was quite a few people. He figured there was 500 people there. So sorry he wasn't able to join us here today, but sounds like a great initiative and maybe something that could be replicated in other municipalities too.
Yes, maybe Grey County, I know they had talked about this, but maybe we could have a couple of farms in each of the 9 municipalities, and people could do a really widespread tour of Grey County, maybe over 2 days. And that way people could have a drop in somewhere else and have a motel night somewhere. But we were just overwhelmed at how successful this was. And I don't know if our mayor had spoken at Grey County about this, but maybe she has. I don't sit there any longer, but but it was very successful.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Ardell. Blair Freeman has a question. Is he able to be linked in, Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding that Blair is still connected to the meeting and that he should be able to unmute himself.
You can hear me.
There we go.
Can you hear me, Keith?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm just thinking more about this Share the Roads campaign. Have we given thought in terms of how to target the agricultural community with it as well? I'm just thinking that everybody's got a role to play, and it's a great campaign, but there's a bit of a tendency in the ag community to feel that, you know, there's a bunch of bad drivers on the road and I'm just over here doing my thing and it's everybody else's fault, right? But, you know, me as an agricultural operator, I have a role to play in terms of making sure that I'm doing everything that I should be, right? Is there thought, or maybe this is a future topic, in how we take this to the agricultural operators as well?
I can maybe respond to that one, Keith.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that is a really good point, Blair. And that is something that I came across in my research when I was looking for just some directions for the key messaging for this campaign, because I knew that there was no reason in reinventing the wheel here. And I did reach out to the Ontario Federation of Agriculture to see if we could lean onto some of their campaigns. And there is a lot of good material out there that is tips for the agricultural community too, and making sure they're doing safety checks and using signals and things like that too. So that isn't something that we incorporated into this campaign, but certainly is something that we can work into other future campaigns as well, just to show that, like you said, it is a shared responsibility.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wondering, Savannah, if you could update the Ag Committee on the movement or the discussions with the Blue Water Board of Education around the agricultural program that was in Chesley moving to Grey Roots, and also the work that's being done between Grey Roots and the planning department in regards to a regional fair.
Excellent. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The second one, Scott's on here, right? He was? Yes, I'm going to pass that one to Scott about the Rald site and the work being done there, because that really is in the planning stages and will be heading into the planning stages. We are hopeful that our next council meeting will be bringing forward a report about the agricultural specialist high skill major that has been running through Chesley for many years. The Blue Water District School Board, following conversations from this committee, had brought forward and asked to maybe move the program to Grey Roots, given its central and transportation hub. So we've been working with the school board and the NEC and planning and others over the last year and a half, trying to figure out how this would work. And we think that we've almost got there. So we're very hopeful that we'll be going forward with that report next council meeting with an agreement. And that would see the program starting in February as a pilot. And that gives us time for both sides to see, how well it works and if there's anything that we need to tweak beyond that. But we'd love to be able to see it permanently if everyone is happy. So we have conditional approval from NEC, and hopefully we will have a report to council next week. And then Scott, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Savannah, and through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Mackey. Yeah, we're still working on the Niagara Escarpment plan amendment application for the broader, what we call the Ralds property, which is adjacent to Grey Roots there. And I apologize, this has been a longer procedure than we thought, even just to get to the application stage. As Savannah mentioned, we did have NEC staff involved with the Blue Water piece, and as a part of that, we had two of the newer NEC staff members come out and tour the Grey Roots property and tour the Ralds property to sort of give them a snapshot of what we hope to be proposing very soon through that Niagara Escarpment plan amendment. So we can certainly advise this committee and of course County Council when that application gets submitted, and we're hopeful to be able to partner with the NEC on working through that approvals process and hopefully see that within the next couple of years. They have advised us that from the time we submit the application, it's about a 2-year approval process. So again, it won't be overnight, but we're hopeful we can get this going here soon. The two ag societies, the school board and Savannah's team at Grey Roots have all been just absolutely wonderful to deal with. So we look forward to be able to move the ball forward on this one.
Okay, thank you both for that. Hand up from Lori.
Thank you, Keith. My list keeps increasing as everybody keeps talking. First off, the Share the Road campaign, I was smiling all through it. You know that I've been one of the ones that have been very talkative about making sure we do this. So I thank you from the bottom of all the farmers' hearts for doing that campaign. So thank you so much. I totally agree with Blair's comments as well. It is essential that we continue to educate our farmers on new laws, new rules, etc. Just wanted to add, though, a commentary on how difficult it is to secure a speaker from MTO to speak to this. I can get a police officer very readily, but it's important to have a police officer and an MTO officer together. It takes months to get approval to get an MTO speaker to come to a course or Grey Bruce Farmers Week. We asked back in 21, I think, we asked in April. We didn't get approval till a week before Grey Bruce Farmers Week. Got approval, then the guy got sick, so he couldn't come anyways. But it should not take that long to get approvals to get a speaker to come and educate farmers who need to be, they need to know all the recent changes, the new laws, etc. They need to be able to ask questions. So I don't know if county can help whenever we try to get someone from the MTO again in the future, but we would really appreciate some assistance to try and get these guys here, because we need to keep it on as a topic at Grey Bruce Farmers Week and a winter course. So that's one thing. Then in terms of the open farm tour, I think that sounded lovely, Gail. It sounded wonderful. We've been talking about it in our office for some time. We would love to be involved. So if Grey County wants to do something Grey County wide, Emily and I are right there to help. So let us know. Another thing, I agree with Hugh. This Ag Advisory Committee is a wonderful thing. I was in it last term and in it this term. I think we're creating a lot of great ideas. Sarah Epp, who we're actually getting to speak at Grey Bruce Farmers Week in a panel that Scott's in as well. She's from the University of Guelph, and she's done a lot of research on the value of Ag Advisory Committees and what other counties have done with their Ag Advisory Committees. I'd mentioned to Tara a bit ago that maybe she could be a speaker at one of our upcoming meetings to kind of let us know what other people are doing. I think we're doing a great job here, but hey, let's hear from what other committees are doing, and maybe we can take a piece from their page and do even more than what we're doing right now. Last thing, Hugh and I just came out of a Guardian Network mental health webinar. They check in every month. Something that was addressed by a lot of the people there was the concern in the farming community about interest rates. Not a lot we can do here, but just know that that's a huge concern. It's causing mental health ripples as well. So just be aware that that's happening in our community, and sit down. And if someone wants to share, if they trust you, listen and help them, and hopefully get the help that they need if needed. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for those comments, Lori. There is a local person that's just retired recently from the MTO. That might be an option too, but we can chat offline about that for sure. Looks like Kim Wingrove, you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone. I'll just follow up to Lori's comments. Lori, it's been our experience here with several ministries that there's a real high degree of sensitivity around that, and anything that we can do to have some conversations with those ministries or with MTO, I should say, on your behalf, and to try and provide some assurance to them. We're happy to try and do that for you, but it's not just you. The second thing is, I appreciate your comment about other Ag Advisory Committees. That's a great suggestion, and I think we could, that would be time well spent to have some further investigation into what others are doing. There's always opportunities to do more and do better. So thanks for that.
Okay, that's great. Any other comments, questions? If not, we will move on from roundtable discussion. You will see correspondence has been attached to your agenda. We don't need to go through this unless there's something that someone wants to pull out from that. If not, I'm just looking for a motion. Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The motion from Aaron Eldersley in regards to the tile drain that was supported by West Grey. I can also let the committee know that the Township of Chatsworth also endorsed that resolution. And instead of receiving it for information, I'm just wondering if our committee should be also endorsing, or at least forwarding it on to Grey County County Council for their endorsement. I think it makes a lot of sense what is outlined. It's been a long time since the tile drainage amounts have been increased, and the more voices behind it, the better chance that the ministry will sit up and take notice. So my suggestion is that we do more than just receive it, that we actually support it, and maybe forward it to County Council with our support, asking that they would also support it. Thank you.
Okay, are you making a motion to do that?
I would certainly move that that we support and endorse, and ask the same of Grey County Council.
Okay, it looks like Tom Hutchison seconding. I'll call the.
Thank you very much. I will second.
Okay. I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, looks like It's kind of a mess, but I think it's passing.
For
Okay,
you, Mr. Chair, I did see what I understand to be a majority of hands. in
Okay.
support of that motion.
okay, great, thank you. So yeah, all in favor of that. That motion is carried. Looking for a motion still though to someone make a motion, I guess, just to approve the correspondence as presented, as circulated. Councillor McQueen. And seconded by Hugh Simpson. I'll call the question. All in favor? And I would call that the majority as well. Okay, thank you. Moving on to other business. I would probably assume most of that's been caught in roundtable discussions, but any other business? Hearing none, seeing some nods, no. Next meeting date? Sarah, is that you?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you. We have not quite yet set the 2024 meeting schedule, but we will be reaching out to members with our proposed dates for the 2024 year. We have received some feedback from members with considerations for the meeting scheduling. So if you have anything that you'd like to share before I send out my list to all of you, for your feedback, do feel free to let me know. I think the comments were just to be mindful of the summer months and perhaps a suggestion that we meet in the mornings if that was available for folks, but we will follow up and get those booked. But it is my understanding that this is to be the last meeting of the committee for 2023.
Okay, so we will table next meeting date until you have a circulated 2024's meeting dates then. Okay, I think that is it. Motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
Councillor Hutchison.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Perfect. Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. Productive meeting.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.